The archive held 10,000 unreadable tablets. Humans looked once and said, "These are our warnings."
The research station floated in orbit around Terminus 7, a dead planet with no atmosphere and no life. Inside the station, dozens of alien scientists worked in quiet frustration. They had been working here for 3 centuries, and they were no closer to understanding the mystery below. Dr. Sarah Chen stepped off the transport ship and took a deep breath. The station's air was clean and cool, filtered perfectly by alien technology. Behind her, 3 other human researchers carried their equipment bags. They were tired from the long journey, but excited. "Welcome to Archive Station," said Clicking Thoughtful, an archivist who looked like a large praying mantis made of blue crystal. His voice came through a translation device. "We are pleased that humans have finally arrived. Though I must warn you, many brilliant minds have tried and failed to decode the tablets." Sarah smiled politely. "We appreciate the opportunity to help." Clicking Thoughtful led them through the station's corridors. Other researchers looked up from their work as the humans passed. Sarah saw many different species. The synthesis looked like walking crystals that glowed with soft light. The Meridian had 6 arms and fur like silver moss. The Vok were small and round, floating in the air with natural abilities. They arrived at a large observation room. Through the window, Sarah could see the planet below. On its surface sat a massive structure, the Archive of Whispers. The archive was discovered 300 years ago, Clicking Thoughtful explained. It contains exactly 10,000 stone tablets. Each tablet is covered with symbols. We have used every method known to science: linguistic analysis, pattern recognition, quantum computing, even telepathic interpretation. Nothing works. Dr. James Okonkwo, one of Sarah's teammates, studied the images on the display screen. "May we see some of the tablets in person?" "Of course," Clicking Thoughtful said. "We have brought many tablets to the station for study. Follow me." They entered a large laboratory. Tables lined the walls, each holding several stone tablets. The tablets were different sizes, from small ones that fit in one hand to large ones that required 2 people to lift. The stone was gray and smooth, worn by incredible age. Sarah approached the nearest table. She put on protective gloves and carefully picked up a tablet. The symbols carved into the stone were strange. They weren't letters or words like human languages used. They looked more like pictures, but abstract ones. Circles, lines, triangles, and shapes that seemed to flow into each other. "Every species has tried their best translation methods," said Vel 9, a synthesis researcher whose crystal body glowed blue. "The symbols follow mathematical patterns, but they don't match any known language structure. They appear random, yet they clearly aren't random. It's like looking at music you can't hear." Sarah rotated the tablet slowly, studying it from different angles. Something about the symbols felt familiar, though she couldn't explain why. The way they were arranged, the weight they seemed to carry, the feeling they created in her mind. She set down that tablet and picked up another. This one showed a different arrangement of symbols. A circle with wavy lines beneath it, sharp angular marks around the edges, a pattern that repeated 3 times. Her heart began to beat faster. "Dr. Chen?" James noticed her expression. "What is it?" Sarah didn't answer immediately. She moved to another table and examined more tablets. Then another table, and another. Her teammates watched her with growing curiosity. The alien researchers exchanged confused glances. After examining dozens of tablets, Sarah finally spoke. "These aren't meant to be read like a language." Clicking Thoughtful's antennae twitched. "What do you mean?" Sarah picked up the tablet with the circle and wavy lines. "This symbol, what does it make you feel when you look at it?" Vel 9 tilted their crystalline head. "I don't understand the question. Symbols convey information, not feelings." "But this one does," Sarah insisted. She traced the wavy lines with her gloved finger. Water. Rising water. And these sharp marks around the edge, they feel like danger, don't they? Like a warning? Dr. Amara Santos, the youngest member of the human team, stepped forward. She was an expert in ancient human civilizations. "Oh my God," she whispered. "You're right. It's like the radiation symbol." "The what symbol?" asked Clicking Thoughtful. Amara pulled out her portable display device. She showed them an image of a human warning symbol. A yellow and black sign with 3 triangular shapes. This is how humans warn about radiation danger. The symbol doesn't spell out words. It creates a feeling of danger. It's designed to be understood even if you can't read the language. James caught on quickly. He grabbed another tablet. And this one, these symbols showing figures pulling apart, moving in opposite directions. It looks like division, conflict, breaking apart. Sarah felt excitement building in her chest. Throughout human history, we've created warnings that work without words. Cave paintings showing dangerous animals, skulls to mark poison, red colors to signal danger. We did this because we needed to warn people who might not speak our language, or people far in the future who might have forgotten our languages. She looked around at all the alien researchers. These tablets aren't records of what happened. They're warnings about what might happen. The civilization that made them wasn't writing a history book. They were trying to warn whoever found these tablets. The room fell silent. Every researcher stared at Sarah. Vel 9's glow brightened. That would explain why linguistic analysis failed. We were trying to decode words when we should have been recognizing warnings. Clicking Thoughtful approached the tablets with new interest. But warnings about what? Sarah picked up several tablets, arranging them on the table. That's what we need to figure out. But I can tell you this much. Whoever made these warnings wanted very badly for someone to understand them. They created 10,000 tablets because the message was important. Maybe the most important message they could leave. She looked out the window at the dead planet below. And I think we need to understand that message. Because civilizations don't usually leave warnings unless something terrible happened to them. The next morning, the human team began working in a completely different way than the alien researchers expected. Instead of using computers and translation programs, they spread hundreds of tablets across multiple tables and simply looked at them. Sarah walked slowly between the tables, studying each tablet carefully. She wasn't trying to read words. She was trying to feel what each symbol meant. "This one," she said, pointing to a tablet with symbols showing curved lines and small dots. "This feels like it's about growth. Plants, maybe? Food sources?" James stood beside another table. "And this one has the opposite feeling. The lines are broken and bent. The dots are scattered. This could be about crops dying or food becoming scarce." Clicking Thoughtful watched them work with fascination. "Pattern recognition," Amara explained. She arranged several tablets in a row. Humans are very good at seeing patterns and making connections. It's how our brains work. We see a smile. We know someone is happy. We see dark clouds. We know rain is coming. We don't need words for these things. Well, every one of you. One-sided. One-sided. Godden. One-sided. 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 We see a smile. More alien researchers gathered to watch. Vel 9 brought their supervisor, a synthesis elder named Crystal of Ages, whose body glowed with rainbow colors. "Show me what you have found," Crystal of Ages said. Sarah organized the tablets into groups. "We've identified several categories so far. This group here, these, all share similar feelings of environmental danger. Rising water, dying plants, poisoned air. The symbols aren't specific, but the warning is clear." She moved to another group. "These tablets feel different. They show separation, division, conflict between groups. See how the figures in the symbols pull away from each other? How the circles fragment into pieces. James added another group to the table. And these are the most disturbing. They show creation and destruction together, progress and danger. We think these might be warnings about technology, things that can help, but also harm. Dr. Amara Santos connected her display device to the station's main screen. Images appeared showing examples from human history. We want to show you something. These are warnings that humans created thousands of years ago. The first image showed ancient cave paintings from Earth. Red handprints surrounded by drawings of dangerous animals. Our ancestors painted these to warn others about danger zones. The next image showed a more recent symbol, 3 triangles arranged in a specific pattern with bright colors. This is our radiation warning symbol. We created it after we discovered nuclear energy. We needed to warn people, even people far in the future, who might not speak our languages. Another image appeared a series of pictograms showing frightened faces, death symbols, and abstract danger signs. These were designed for nuclear waste storage sites. The waste stays dangerous for 10,000 years. We had to create warnings that would work, even if human civilization changed completely. The alien researchers leaned forward, studying the images with new understanding. Every civilization that survives long enough learns to leave warnings, Sarah said quietly. The question is whether the future generation listens to those warnings. Crystal of Ages dimmed their glow, a sign of deep thought among the synthesis. This changes everything. We have been treating the archive as a puzzle to solve. But it is not a puzzle. It is a message. A desperate message, James added. Think about it. 10,000 tablets. That's not a small effort. Whoever made these spent enormous time and resources. They really wanted someone to understand. Over the next several hours, the human team continued sorting tablets. More patterns emerged. They found tablets that seemed to show sequences, warnings that built on each other, showing how small problems became larger ones. Clicking Thoughtful began helping, using his species' excellent memory to recall which tablets they had seen before. I think I understand now, he said. This tablet here, we always thought these symbols were abstract art. But now I see it. These are buildings falling down, structures collapsing. Exactly, Sarah confirmed. And when we put it next to this tablet showing the fragmented circles, and this one showing the environmental symbols, a story starts to form. Vel 9 processed this information. A story of collapse. Multiple types of collapse happening together. Dr. Santos found something particularly interesting. She called the others over to her table. Look at this sequence. 7 tablets that seem to go together. They show progression. Something starting small and growing larger. The first tablet showed tiny marks, barely noticeable. The second tablet showed those marks slightly bigger. By the 7th tablet, the marks dominated the entire stone. It's a warning about ignoring small problems, Amara said. The first signs were tiny. Easy to miss or dismiss, but they grew. And by the time they were obvious, it was too late. Sarah felt a chill run through her body. We need to document all of this. Every tablet, every pattern, every connection we can find. The alien researchers began working alongside the humans, applying the new methodology. The archivists used their perfect memory to track which tablets shared similar symbols. The synthesis applied their logical thinking to organize the patterns. The Meridian, with their 6 arms, could examine multiple tablets simultaneously. As the day progressed, a disturbing picture began to emerge. The tablets weren't just random warnings. They told a story. A civilization had faced multiple crises. Environmental problems, social division, dangerous technology, and somehow, all of these problems had come together. By evening, they had sorted nearly 2,000 tablets into meaningful categories. Crystal of Ages called an emergency meeting of the research station's leadership. "We must inform the Galactic Council immediately," Crystal of Ages announced. "This discovery has implications far beyond archaeology." Sarah nodded slowly. "These warnings were left by a civilization that died. And they died because they didn't heed their own warnings. We need to understand exactly what happened to them." She looked at the organized tablets spread across the laboratory. Hundreds of stone warnings, carved with desperate hope that someone, someday, would understand and learn from their mistakes. "Because," Sarah continued softly, "if we don't understand what destroyed them, we might make the same mistakes." 3 days later, the human team had organized more than half of the 10,000 tablets. Representatives from the Galactic Council arrived at the station to see the progress. They gathered in the main laboratory, where tablets now covered every available surface. Sarah stood before the council representatives and began her presentation. "What we've discovered is both remarkable and frightening. The civilization that created these tablets, we're calling them the predecessors, were incredibly advanced, more advanced than we initially thought." She gestured to a group of tablets on the left side of the room. "These tablets show technological achievements, structures reaching into the sky, vessels traveling between stars, energy sources we can barely imagine. The predecessors had mastered fusion power, faster than light travel, and terraforming." A council member from the Talon Imperium, a species that looked like armored reptiles, spoke up. "If they were so advanced, how did they fail?" "That's the question that haunts every tablet in this room," James answered. He walked to a different section. "Let me show you the environmental warnings." He pointed to a sequence of tablets. "This first one shows balance. Water, land, growing things, all in harmony. But watch what happens in the next tablets." The sequence showed progressive change. Water rising in some areas, disappearing in others. Green symbols turning brown. Air symbols becoming darker, heavier. The predecessors had the knowledge to track these changes, James explained. These tablets show detailed observations. They knew their planet was changing. They had the data, the science, the understanding. But they didn't act? Asked, clicking thoughtful. "Not fast enough," Sarah said quietly. "We found another set of tablets that explains why. Amara, can you show them?" Amara brought forward tablets covered with symbols showing groups of figures. Some figures stood in circles, connected. Others pulled apart, forming separate groups. Sharp dividing lines cut through the symbols. "Social fragmentation," Amara explained. The predecessors became divided. Different groups wanted different things. Some groups believed the environmental warnings. Others didn't. Some wanted to change their ways. Others refused. The symbols show increasing conflict. Groups unable to work together. 2. Vel 9's crystalline body flickered with concern. They had the knowledge but lacked unity. "Exactly," Sarah confirmed. She moved to the center of the laboratory, where the most disturbing tablets were displayed. "And then, there's this category. We call them the technology warnings." These tablets showed symbols that seemed to represent great power explosions, concentrated energy, tools that could reshape landscapes. But each tablet paired these symbols with warning markers, the same danger signs that appeared on the environmental tablets. The predecessors created powerful technologies, Sarah explained. But they created them faster than their wisdom could manage them. These tablets show weapons, industrial processes, and energy systems that could help or destroy, depending on how they were used. James picked up one particularly large tablet. This one is critical. It shows all three warnings together: environment, society, and technology, like three streams flowing into one river. The predecessors understood that their problems were connected. One crisis made the others worse. Crystal of Ages studied the tablets with their rainbow glow dimming to a troubled purple. You're saying they saw their destruction coming? They more than saw it, Amara said softly. She brought out a new group of tablets. These were the hardest to interpret. They show figures that seem to be pleading, reaching out. We believe these represent the predecessor scientists, teachers, and leaders who tried to warn their society. The tablets showed a heartbreaking progression. Early ones showed warning figures speaking to crowds. Middle ones showed the crowds getting smaller, fewer figures listening. Later ones showed the warning figures isolated, alone. They tried to sound the alarm, Sarah said, but their warnings were dismissed. Some people called them alarmists. Others said the changes weren't real or weren't important. Others admitted the problems existed, but said fixing them would cost too much. She picked up a tablet near the end of the sequence. This one shows something we recognize from human history. It shows people saying, "We have more time." That's the most dangerous thought a civilization can have when facing crisis. The Talon representative shifted uncomfortably. How do you know the predecessors thought this? 1. James showed them a sequence of tablets that tracked time, likely representing their years or seasons. Because the warnings span a long period. Hundreds, maybe thousands of their years. They had time to change course. Time to solve their problems. But they kept delaying, thinking the crisis was far away. Sarah walked to the final section of tablets. The room grew silent as everyone looked at them. These were different from the others. The carving was rougher, more desperate. The symbols seemed to shake with urgency. These are the last tablets, Sarah said quietly. Created as their civilization was collapsing. They show cities empty, water systems failing, social order breaking down. The three crises: environment, society, and technology all came together in a perfect storm. One tablet showed figures scattered, separated, unable to help each other. Another showed resources fought over, shared systems failing. Another showed the planet itself becoming hostile to life. The final tablets are the most painful, Amara said. She showed them a tablet with symbols that looked like hands reaching toward the future. The predecessors knew they had failed, but they carved these warnings anyway. Not for themselves, they knew they were finished. They carved them for whoever came next. Clicking Thoughtful's antennae drooped. A final gift, a warning from the dead to the living. Yes, Sarah confirmed. And they made 10,000 tablets because they wanted to be absolutely sure the message survived. They wanted us to know what they had learned, even though they learned it too late. The council representative stood in silence, looking at the tablets spread throughout the laboratory. Each stone represented a piece of knowledge, bought with the price of an entire civilization's extinction. Finally, the Talon representative spoke, his voice uncertain. This is just one civilization. Their failure doesn't mean others will fail the same way. Sarah looked at him directly. That's what the predecessors probably told themselves about whoever came before them. The translation of the archive sent shockwaves through the Galactic Council. Within a week, every major species had sent additional representatives to the research station. Everyone wanted to see the tablets for themselves. But the mood at the station had changed. The alien researchers no longer looked at the tablets as ancient curiosities. They looked at them with recognition and fear. Sarah found Vel 9 standing alone in front of the environmental warning tablets late one evening. The synthesis researcher's glow was dim, almost gray. Are you all right? Sarah asked gently. Vel 9's crystalline body flickered. I have been reviewing my own species' environmental data. Our industrial expansion over the past century. The mining operations on 3 of our colony worlds. The atmospheric changes on our homeworld. And? Sarah prompted softly. The patterns match, Vel 9 said quietly. Not exactly, but close enough. We are following the same path the predecessors followed. We have the data. Our scientists have warned us. But our economic councils say change would be too expensive, too disruptive. Sarah nodded slowly. We humans have the same problem. We've known about climate change on Earth for over a century. We've had the data, the warnings, the solutions. But we kept delaying because change seemed too hard. Did you fix it? Vel 9 asked hopefully. We're trying, Sarah admitted. It took us too long to start. We've lost species, damaged ecosystems, caused suffering. But finally, enough people started listening. We're still fighting to reverse the damage. Vel 9's glow brightened slightly. So, change is possible. If you start soon enough, Sarah said, and if enough people choose to listen. The next day, Crystal of Ages called an emergency meeting. Every species representative attended. The laboratory was crowded as they gathered around the organized tablets. We must discuss an uncomfortable truth, Crystal of Ages began. The predecessor warnings apply to many of us here today. A representative from the Meridian species stepped forward. Her silver fur rippled with agitation. My government sent me our social cohesion data. For the past 50 years, our society has been fragmenting. Different regions want different things. Some groups refuse to work with others. The divisions grow wider every year. She gestured to the social warning tablets. When I look at these symbols, showing separation and conflict, I see my own people. Clicking Thoughtful spoke next. The archivists have excellent records. We document everything. I reviewed our archives last night. We have reports about inequality in our society going back 200 years. Scientists, philosophers, social experts, all warning about growing problems. We stored these reports carefully, but we never acted on them. One by one, species representatives shared similar stories. The VOC admitted their technology was advancing faster than their ability to control it. The Talon Imperium acknowledged they were in an arms race with neighboring species, creating weapons that terrified even their own people. The room filled with uncomfortable silence. Then James spoke up. We humans don't share these stories to judge you. We share them because we understand. Every growing civilization faces these challenges. The question isn't whether you'll face them. The question is whether you'll listen to your warnings in time. The Talon representative, whose name was Sharp Scale, stood abruptly. This is unnecessary panic. Yes, the predecessors failed. But we are different species, with different circumstances. We cannot change our entire civilizations because of ancient warnings from a dead culture. Can't we? Sarah challenged gently. The predecessors had the same choice. They could have changed course. They chose not to. And now they're extinct. They know one have a Z. Sharpscale's armor plates clicked with irritation. You're asking us to slow our progress, limit our growth, sacrifice our advancement based on fear. No, Amara interjected. We're asking you to be wise instead of just smart. The predecessors were smart, very smart, but they weren't wise. Wisdom is knowing when to stop, when to change, when to listen to warnings, even when it's inconvenient. Dr. James Okonkwo pulled up information on his display device. Let me tell you about something from human history. A group called the Iroquois Confederacy had a principle called the seventh generation principle. When they made important decisions, they thought about how those decisions would affect their descendants 7 generations into the future. That's over 100 years. Vel 9 calculated. Exactly, James confirmed. They thought long-term because they cared about the people who would come after them. The predecessors tried to do the same thing. With these tablets, they failed to save themselves, but they tried to save us. Sarah stood and walked to the center of the room. We humans propose something. Create a new council institution. Call it the the chamber of long sight. Every major decision would have to be reviewed not just for immediate benefits, but for long-term consequences. Impossible, Sharpscale declared. That would slow everything down. We have economies to grow, territories to expand, competitions to win. And the predecessors had the same priorities, Sarah said quietly. How did that work out for them? The meeting grew tense. Some species agreed with Sarah's proposal. Others sided with Sharpscale. The arguments went on for hours. Finally, the youngest researcher in the room spoke up. It was a Vok named Floating Gentle, barely an adult by their species standards. They floated to the front of the room, their small, round body trembling slightly. I have a question, Floating Gentle said softly. When you all look at these tablets, what do you feel? The room quieted. I feel sadness, Floating Gentle continued. The predecessors loved their children. They loved their future. They carved these warnings because even when they knew they had failed, they wanted to protect whoever came next. They loved people they would never meet. The young Vok floated slowly past the tablets. My generation will live in the future you all create. We will inherit your choices. So I ask you, do you love us enough to change? Do you love your own children's children enough to listen to these warnings? Floating Gentle's simple question hung in the air like a challenge. Sarah saw several representatives shift uncomfortably. Others looked thoughtful. Even Sharpscale seemed troubled. Crystal of Age's glow shifted to a determined gold. The young one speaks truth. We must decide who we want to be. Will we be remembered as the generation that learned from the predecessors, or as the generation that ignored their warnings and repeated their mistakes? The debate continued for 3 more days. Species representatives contacted their home governments. Messages traveled across the galaxy. Some leaders were eager to learn from the predecessor warnings. Others resisted any change to their current paths. Sarah spent those days documenting every tablet, creating a comprehensive guide that any species could understand. She worked alongside Vel 9, who had become a close friend during the research. Do you think they'll listen? Vel 9 asked one evening, as they organized their final reports. Some will, Sarah said. Maybe not everyone, not right away. But enough might listen to make a difference. Some will see. Some will see will to say. With a plus one. Some will see will to see will to see. Maybe not everyone. Some will see will to see will to see. Maybe not everyone. Some will see will to see. Maybe not everyone. On the 4th day, the Galactic Council held a formal session. Representatives from all major species gathered in the station's largest chamber. The humans watched nervously as the discussion began. Sharpscale from the Talon Imperium spoke first. I have consulted with my government. We believe the archive presents interesting historical information, but we cannot support major changes to our policies based on one extinct civilization's failures. Sarah's heart sank. But then, something unexpected happened. An older Talon representative stood up, someone Sarah hadn't seen before. His armor was marked with symbols of age and wisdom. I am Elder Claw. I represent the Talon Historical Society, and I must share something with this council. I, too. Elder Claw activated a display screen. Images of Talon documents appeared. I have been researching our own archives. 2,000 years ago, our civilization nearly collapsed. We faced environmental disaster, social division, and dangerous weapons. We almost destroyed ourselves. The room fell silent in surprise. We survived because enough of our ancestors chose to change, Elder Claw continued. They listened to warnings. They sacrificed short-term gains for long-term survival. We have simply forgotten this lesson over time. The archive doesn't show us someone else's failure. It shows us a mirror of what we once faced. Sharpscale sat down, looking troubled. Other species began sharing similar discoveries. The synthesis remembered a crisis from their distant past. The Meridian found records of near collapse from their early history. Even the archivists discovered forgotten warnings in their own perfect records. Crystal of Ages stood, their rainbow glow bright with determination. We all carry these stories. Every surviving civilization has faced these tests. The predecessors remind us of what happens when we forget these lessons. Clicking Thoughtful added, the humans helped us understand these tablets, not because they are perfect, but because they remember their struggles. They still face these challenges. They teach their young about their mistakes, so those mistakes won't be repeated. The council took a vote. It wasn't unanimous, but the majority agreed. They would establish the Chamber of Long Sight. Every major decision would be reviewed for its impact on future generations. They would create warning protocols to ensure that scientific concerns couldn't be ignored for political or economic reasons. More importantly, they would transform the archive itself. 2 months later, Sarah returned to the research station for a special ceremony. The Archive of Whispers had been renamed the Memorial of Future Sight. The station had been expanded into a permanent institution where young people from every species would come to study the predecessor warnings. But the most meaningful change was happening in the archive chamber on Terminus 7 itself. Sarah stood on the planet's surface, protected by an environmental suit. The ancient building housing the 10,000 predecessor tablets had been carefully restored and preserved. But now, a new section was being added. Workers were installing new pedestals, creating space for new tablets. We're not just preserving the past, Vel 9 explained, standing beside Sarah in their own protective suit. We're creating a living memorial. Every species will add their own warning tablets, problems they've identified, changes they're choosing to make, lessons they're learning. Amara and James joined them, carrying a carefully wrapped package. Inside was humanity's first contribution to the expanded archive. The tablet was made of earth stone, carved with both human and universal symbols. It showed images of environmental healing, people working together, and careful use of technology. At the bottom was a simple symbol, a handprint beside a growing seedling. What does it mean? Clicking Thoughtful asked. Legacy and growth, Sarah explained. The handprint represents what we leave behind. The seedling represents what grows from our choices. Together, they mean we take responsibility for the future we're creating. They placed the tablet on one of the new pedestals. Soon it would be joined by tablets from the Synthesis, the Archivists, the Meridian, and dozens of other species. Each one documenting warnings they were choosing to heed, changes they were choosing to make. A group of young students arrived for the first official tour of the memorial. They were from mixed species, Talon, Vok, human, and others. Their teacher, Elder Claw himself, led them through the predecessor tablets first, explaining each warning. Then he brought them to the new section. These tablets are different, he told the students. The predecessors carved their warnings when it was too late. These new tablets represent warnings we're heeding while we still have time. A young Talon student, barely 10 years old, raised his hand. Can we add tablets too? When we're older? Elder Claw's expression softened. That's exactly what we hope. Each generation should add their own tablets. Each generation must choose to listen to warnings and make wise choices. Sarah watched the students studying both the ancient and new tablets. She saw them making connections, asking questions, thinking about their futures. Floating Gentle floated over to Sarah. The young Vok had become a permanent researcher at the memorial. Thank you for helping us understand, they said softly. We only helped you see what was already there. Sarah replied. The warnings were always clear. Sometimes, people just need someone to help them look. As the sun set on Terminus 7, casting long shadows across the memorial, Sarah thought about the predecessors. They had failed to save themselves, but in their failure, they had given the galaxy a precious gift, the gift of their hard-earned wisdom. The archive had once been a monument to death and failure. Now it was becoming something more, a living commitment to life and learning. One of the human students, a girl named Maya, carefully placed a small flower near humanity's tablet. The flower wouldn't survive in the harsh environment, but the gesture was meaningful. For the predecessors, Maya said quietly. So, they know. We're listening. Sarah smiled. The predecessors were gone, but their message lived on. And this time, the future was listening. The memorial of future sight would stand as a reminder that civilizations survive not because they never face warnings, but because they have the wisdom and courage to heed them.